Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the main event. Let's get ready to rumble!
And that's right, everybody. Welcome back once again to another edition of the Best Seat in the House podcast. As always, I'm your host, Rob Kramer, joined by my co-host, Daniel Bobo Carlin. Now, we got a lot to get into today, but before that, how you doing today, Dan?
I'm doing fine. For those of you, of course, all you who were following me on social media know that I am the Mets trivia master of this year's of this year's Queens Baseball Convention last weekend. They do this trivia contest every year, usually hosted by the people that host a baseball night in New York on SNY, led by Sal Licata. Of course, I just volunteered to take part in it, and I won Gary, Keith, and Ron signed baseball, which, like I said, I'll show you guys. For those of you guys wondering when am I going to post a picture of it, once I get a display case thing for it, because I don't have a display thing right now to protect it. So until I got the little plastic display case thingy to display it in, I'm keeping it in a protective tissue paper it was given to me in. But
that's definitely a good idea. But also, you got this nifty belt right here to hoist for the whole crowd to see, right, Dan?
Yeah. Well, actually, that's kind of really not really own that belt. But what happens is that every year they bring that belt to the Queens Baseball Convention, the people that run the event, for the winner to take a photo op with. So I got to take a picture with that belt.
Exactly, just to show that you. Just to show that, like the great Eastside Dave would say, that you are the trivia champion. So
exactly that. So exactly, but so still, I got that photo to show people that I did, in fact, the only ones that get a photo with that belt at the Queens Baseball Convention, you had to win, and I won. So I got two big things. I got three major championships to my name. And I'm gonna share them with you in order. First, I forgot what week this was, but I was during the time of the Eastside Dave show when Eastside Dave was on Compound Media. I am one of the winners of the flute game, and I do got the shirt. I'm sure you've seen me wear that red Eastside Dave shirt. I'm one of the winners of the Eastside Dave show flutesy game, where I guess the song Flutesy was playing, and she was playing the Indiana Jones theme. I also am the winner of the Eastside Dave Show sketch competition. You remember, and you were a part of that sketch.
That I was.
You remember? Yeah, you were a part of the winning sketch of the Eastside Dave Show sketch competition. I forget you were a part of that sketch, which by the way is on my YouTube. It's one where Daniel Curlin. You could actually watch that sketch. Unfortunately, I wish the way the MNC Lou did when he was editing the stuff together and post. It kind of looks like a thing in production, but I might have to one of these days do a remake of that sketch so people have a better quality version of it, because you remember how it looked, right?
Yes. That was very fun though. As a matter of fact, actually, if people haven't seen that, we'll post the link to that in the description of this video. Just in case you're wondering what we're talking about.
Yeah, and I have to say, I had to try not to laugh when we're filming this, because I thought Stevie Lou did a hilarious job playing that pizza man in that sketch.
He did.
And I had to try not to laugh when I'm filming the part where I get angry and I whack him with the pizza box. It was just a challenge not to laugh, because I just thought it was so funny when we're filming it, and when I was writing the sketch, I was just laughing laughing at this idea when I'm typing up the script for it. How funny that was! And I feel like me and everyone in that video just we nailed what that vision I had when I was typing up the script for it, and it's still hilarious every time I watch that one. And of course now we can add the Mets, the 2020, I guess we'll consider this 2023 Queens Baseball Convention Mets trivia champion added to those championships to my name.
Exactly, Dan. So you got that championship attached to your name, and you know what? There is a whole lot of going on right now. We haven't had too many championships in New York lately, especially the Yankees. Who, if you're counting the ways that we normally start this show, unless it's baseball season and the Yankees are doing really good, or there's a reason to bring them up, we usually don't start with the Yankees being Mets fans and everything else with the football being football season and the Rangers and everything. So we usually go elsewhere. But today, unfortunately, the Yankees, it's not a championship, but the Yankees definitely have won the last 24 hours of the baseball winter meetings as they are out there wheeling and dealing. First off, the Yankees went out last night and acquired outfielder, left-handed bat, Alex Verdugo from the Boston Red Sox in exchange for 3 minor league pitchers. Now, if you remember, Verdugo was one of the pieces that went back to Boston in the Mookie Betts deal. So after Chaim Bloom is ushered out the door in Boston, they're already selling off pieces of that trade. The Yankees pick him up for 3 minor league pitchers. And before we even move on to the big news of the day, which we haven't even got to yet, Dan, when you heard this news break last night that the Yankees, made this trade, and hey, say what you want about the Yankees, one thing me and you have complained about for the last couple of years is the lack of left-handed hitting in the Yankees lineup. They've loaded up on righties like Judge and Stanton and all these big bats, but they needed the lefties to balance it out, especially in that stadium, and picking up a guy like Alex Verdugo was the first step in that direction, right?
Yeah, exactly. Though, at the same time, I keep the last couple of days, especially the Queen Baseball Convention. Come on, do something, David Stern. Do something.
Yes, understandably, Dan, but we're opening talking about the Yankees because they made the big moves. But when you saw this Boston Red Sox, well, first off, from a Red Sox perspective, if you're a Red Sox fan, you've got to be pissed off at this move because what the hell are the Red Sox doing? This used to be one of the big, organizations in baseball that go around spending money at the clip that the Yankees do and the Mets do and the Dodgers and the Cubs, and they're always involved in those big deals. But now they're trading one of their key left-handed bats. And let's not, shit on Alex Verdugo. This guy is a career 280 hitter who me and you would have killed to have in the Mets lineup this year when they weren't hitting for shit. So Alex Verdugo is a good pickup for the Yankees. And if you're a Yankee fan, obviously you were hoping for Soto, and that we'll get there in a sec. But if you're a Red Sox fan, you got to be scratching your head at this, right?
Yeah, it's like I could imagine probably a lot of Red Sox fans, including like my friend Will, is probably furious at this. This does not seem like something. This seems un-Red Sox like to just hand over a talented player to the Yankees of all teams. That's just I've actually heard. I got a few friends that are Red Sox fans, and they really are not liking the owner of the team, I hear.
Yeah, I hear a lot of frustration coming from the Red Sox, and the poor babies. They only have 3 championships over the last 20 years. So I'm sorry if your cries are falling on deaf ears from us Met fans. But look, I understand the Red Sox are a passionate fan base, and they have every right to be upset because honestly, ever since Dave Dombrowski left and went to Philly, and they brought in guys like Chaim Bloom, this team has not been one of the better teams in baseball. You know, the Red Sox were hoping that Chaim Bloom would come in to their organization and turn them into the Tampa Bay Rays of the North, because if you're not, familiar, that's the organization that Chaim Bloom came from. He was a highly thought of front office guy for the Tampa Bay Rays. That's not the case anymore. And, he was the GM in Boston, traded a lot of their big stars, really never went after any big name free agents or anything like that. And the Red Sox have suffered for that over the last couple of years, and trading Verdugo to the Yankees, seems to be keep in line with that for 3 minor league pitchers, even after his exit. Now, who knows? These pitchers could end up, panning out and being good for Boston. But to be honest, when was the last time the Yankees developed a really good minor league pitcher? I mean, it's been a long time. I mean, I guess you could say Domingo Germán is kind of on and off every once in a while. The newest Met addition, Luis Severino, I guess technically is one of those. But boy, if we're talking about those two guys as as some of the best starters the Yankees have produced over the last few years, that's really not too many, right, Dan?
No, I feel like I have to go all the way back to the Joe Torre era to really look at who the heck the Yankees, what pitchers the Yankees have produced as stars.
Yeah, I mean, maybe Chen-Ming Wang. He had those back-to-back 19-win seasons. So you're probably right. It probably was in that Joe Torre era prior to a couple of these guys we're talking about. Because, when you think of the Yankee pitchers, they had A.J. Burnett for a few years. He was a free agent signing. They had Masahiro Tanaka. He was a free agent signing brought in from Japan. The Yankees had a list of all these guys that really none of them were produced by the Yankees themselves. The one thing they were really hanging their hat on over the last couple of years was Justice Sheffield, and he got traded and hasn't done anything since. So it just goes to show the Yankees are a phenomenal organization when it comes to promoting their prospects, because they end up reaping the benefits. And let's just go right into that, Dan, because the Yankees basically got Juan Soto for nothing. I mean, it's insane what teams have to move to get star players these days, and the Yankees just get them for nothing. Let's look at this trade right now. So in case you're wondering what we're talking about, the Yankees ended up making a big trade today with the San Diego Padres. It's been talked about for the last couple of days. There have been rumors flying, but actually, when the Yankees got Verdugo last night, a lot of people just assumed that he was going to be flipped in this trade. But nope, Brian Cashman said he wanted to bring in 2 lefty bats in the outfield, and that's exactly what he's done. The Yankees trade relief pitcher Michael King and a host of prospects: Drew Thorpe, their number 5 prospect; Randy Vasquez, their number 13 prospect; Johnny Brito, a minor league pitcher; and backup catcher, the personal catcher of ace Garrett Cole, Kyle Higashioka, are all being sent to the San Diego Padres in exchange for outfielder Juan Soto. And if you're a Met fan, you remember outfielder Trent Grisham, because he killed us in that playoff series a couple of years ago. Dan, when you hear this, when you look at this, I mean, let's be honest. Drew Thorpe is the number 99 overall prospect in baseball. He's not a good prospect. Yeah, he's number 5 for the Yankees, but it doesn't mean shit. When you saw this trade, my first thought, honestly, was anger at the Mets for not being involved in this. But when you saw this trade and how this kind of tilts the power wheel in favor of the Yankees one more time, what was your initial reaction to seeing Juan Soto getting traded to the Yanks?
Oh, it just made me furious at David Stern, just remaining there, sitting there doing nothing. I'm so until I see a big move made by David Stern, I'm not having faith in him.
Yeah, it's true, man. It's very true. We were told it was going to take a lot to get Juan Soto. Now, look, Michael King's a 29-year-old relief pitcher. Does he have good upside? Yeah. But are the Yankees really giving up a lot for that? No. Drew Thorpe, nobody thought highly of Drew Thorpe. Randy Vasquez was kind of thought of in a decent light, but Johnny Brito nobody cared about, and Kyle Higashioka is an afterthought. He's a third string, at best backup catcher. So, who knows what the Yankees end up doing with Trent Grisham? They might flip him, they might keep him. Who knows? He's another lefty bat, so I could even see Trent Grisham coming here and putting up good numbers for the Yanks. But let me ask you this, Dan. You see what we just laid out: Michael King, Drew Thorpe, Randy Vasquez, Johnny Brito, and Kyle Higashioka. When you see that, Dan, do you think that the Yankees gave up too much? Because let's not forget, this is just 1 year of Juan Soto. He's a free agent after next season. So did the Yankees give up too much, or do you think that this is a good move for the Yanks and they didn't give up too much?
I think it all depends on what happens with Juan Soto, whether he signs a contract extension or not. Because as of right now, it just looks like a rental. Looks like a 1 year rental, pretty much. Way too much for a 1 year rental.
So you think, in your opinion, this trade wouldn't be worth it for the Yankees unless they get him on that contract extension and it becomes more than just a 1 year thing?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, at this rate, I remember before this trade was made, I know there were some Met fans that were saying trading for Soto, but I just felt like, why are we going to give up this many prospects? With like Steve Cohen has the money, he could just sign them for a boatload as a free agent and not have to give up the way too many prospects. Even though I do feel we have too many prospects at one position. Like I feel like there's way too many. I think we're like log jammed with prospects at catcher, and we're log jammed with shortstop prospects. I just felt it made more sense.
Well, you know what? I definitely agree with you on that, Dan. But let me ask you this. Let's look at this from a Mets fan's perspective. Because do you think that if the Mets were going to make this trade for Soto, right? So it would be Soto and Grisham to the Mets. Let's just replace these players, right? So instead of Michael King, the Mets will send, let's say, Tyler McGill, right? Instead of Drew Thorpe, let's say it's the kid the Mets got from Houston for Verlander, Drew Gilbert. And then maybe one more prospect in a guy like, let's see, who's another guy the Mets could throw in there? I don't know. Whoever, I guess an equivalent 13 prospect. Maybe a David Peterson type to take over Johnny Brito. And let's say, instead of one of those high-end guys, let's say it's a Tomas Nido, because, nobody really thinks much of Kyle Higashioka. So if I was saying that we were doing that trade for Juan Soto, would you think that would be worth doing if it was only 1 year? Or would you still need more than 1 year from Soto to do that deal?
I think we would still need more than 1 year. I think what they would need, if the Mets were to make a trade like that, they would have to make a trade like that, and immediately David Stearns would need to get on the phone with Juan Soto's agent.
Yeah, definitely. You're 100% right about that.
Unless, of course, his agent, I forgot, is his agent Boris?
I don't think so, actually. Now that you mention it, I'll look it up right now. But I'm pretty sure his agent is not Scott Boras. Let's see.
Because if that isn't Scott Boras, they don't have to wait to the off season to get that extension done. If it was Boras, I'd be thinking like, oh, we're gonna have to go through all that off season drama. But if that
I'm wrong. Actually, I'm wrong. Scott Boras is in fact Juan Soto's agent.
Yeah, then I feel like Scott Boras, just the fact that alone makes me feel like it's not worth getting a trade with a player that's like his contract expiring at the end of the year. Just for that alone, try to sign him. Just try to sign him during the off season because you're giving up that much for what could be a rental if it doesn't work, if an extension doesn't work out right.
That's true. But one thing you have to remember too, if you're willing to spend the money, Scott Boras is open because if you remember, he just said a couple of days ago in regards to Mets first baseman Pete Alonso that talking about an extension with him, that he's open for business. So you got to keep that in mind. Maybe Boras isn't as hardline free agent as he used to be, but I mean, I think either way, you're 100% right that if it's just going to be for 1 year, that's definitely too great of a package. But one other thing I wanted to get your opinion on, Dan, too, but before we moved on from the Yankees, was that how these trades affect the guys already on their roster. Now, if you look at it, Verdugo is an outfielder and Soto's an outfielder. Obviously, Grisham's an outfielder too, but he's going to end up being on the bench. When you look at it, Verdugo is probably going to end up being in left. Soto is probably going to end up being in right. Now, if you know anything about the Yankees, they already have right field pretty much covered by a guy who they just paid $360 million to last year by the name of Aaron Judge. And so he's been patrolling right field out there in Yankee Stadium for the past 5 or 6 years now. But after this move is made, the Yankees have said today, after questioning Brian Cashman, and he kind of revealed the Yankees' thinking of playing Aaron Judge in center field primarily next season. So it's not like he would be playing center field every once in a while, maybe once or twice a week. No, we're talking about 150 plus games or, around there of Aaron Judge starting in center field. Now, Aaron Judge is a great defensive player and he is a phenomenal defender. He's a phenomenal athlete. But I don't know, man. After you paid this guy $360 million, and he clearly is the Yankees' most important player, as we saw when he got hurt this year. The Yankees died. They died in the water the second Aaron Judge got hurt. He's the most important player, and they're going to be moving him to center field. Now, that's going to be a lot more stress on his legs. That's going to be a lot more demanding in-game for him. Center field is not an easy position. What do you think, Dan? Do you think that's a wise move for the Yankees to be doing that?
I really don't think so. Just because of the injury history with Aaron Judge, I just feel like center field would be too taxing on him. His best bet is to be maybe corner outfield. Maybe years down the line, probably he'll be DHing down the line, but center field, not a good idea.
Yeah. I mean, look, I think right now, it kind of reminds me of, if you remember, when the Mets acquired Yoenis Cespedes during the 2015 season, and then moving on into the 2016 season when he re-signed that first time. The funny thing about that is that the Mets acquired him to play left field. As we know, the Mets ended up having to play Yoenis Cespedes in center field for a lot, and a lot of that time, and it's reasonable at least to say that taxing him physically like that in center field for a lot of those games ended up coming back to bite the Mets in the ass at the end of that contract when Cespedes kept getting hurt, right?
Yeah, I feel like it was in a situation where maybe Cespedes should have been a corner outfielder during that time after 2015. I feel like, because that, in the end, that injury, I feel like those injuries did feel like I think they wore Cespedes out. Of course, let's not forget also that wild boar incident did him in. You'll remember that.
Yeah, that's true. But if you remember too, that wild boar incident happened when he was recovering from another injury that is a heel injury. That, when I start to think about it too, and I put two and two together, you kind of think to yourself, maybe that heel injury that started everything had a lot to do with him playing a lot of center field over his first 2 years as a Met. I guess we'll never know. It's just food for thought. And you know what? As much as I'm not a Yankee fan, man, I just hope Aaron Judge stays healthy because, the baseball is better when guys like Judge are healthy. Just like football is better when guys like Aaron Rodgers are healthy. And you don't like seeing star players get hurt. And I just hope the Yankees aren't making a mistake, right?
Yeah, exactly. I don't want to see it happen. I mean, as much as I dislike the Yankees, I do understand that to Yankee fans, like, like people our age, like I remember my high school days, all the Yankee fans, like that my all the Yankee fans that are my age, they all remember Jeter as being the star player. I feel Aaron Judge is like the player that a certain generation of Yankee fans are going to remember as like the big star player they remember seeing growing up.
Yeah, no doubt about it, Dan. I think you're 100% right. When you look at the history of the Yankees, you go back with there's always like a guy on the Yankees, who's the guy. Obviously, starting with Babe Ruth, then he passes it to Lou Gehrig, who gives it to Joe DiMaggio, who gives it to Mickey Mantle, and Mantle carries that all the way up until maybe even Thurman Munson in the late '60s when Munson came up, gives it to Reggie Jackson, who then hands it off to Don Mattingly, who then hands it off to, Derek Jeter. And then finally we've arrived at Aaron Judge now. And yeah, I think you're right, man. There's always going to be that guy. We still hear our buddy Eastside Dave on the Davey Max Sports program. Don't miss it. One of the best shows around. He always talks about his love of Don Mattingly. And that's because he's a kid that grew up as a Yankee fan, rooting for the Yankees in the 80s and the early 90s. Obviously he loves Jeter too, but the guy that he grew up with, the guy that he idolized as a kid, which like you mentioned is that guy right now, Aaron Judge, back then was Don Mattingly. So yeah, I think Aaron Judge is right there in that same that same category, right?
Yeah, exactly. That's the best way to describe it.
Yeah, man. And so while we're tackling all this hot stove right now, because we concentrated right now. That's probably the longest Yankee segment we've ever done in the history of this show. But hey, I mean, when you make a blockbuster trade like that, you got to cover it. But we also had some interesting news come out over the last 24 hours regarding our New York Metropolitans, as the Mets contingent apparently earlier this week which included Steve Cohen and new team president David Stearns, flew to Japan to woo free agent pitcher Yoshinobu Yamamoto. The Yankees are expected to meet with him on Monday when he travels to the U.S., and it's uncertain if he's going to have a second meeting with the Mets while he's here. Right now the Mets are considered one of the front runners for Yamamoto, so this definitely has to be good news that the Mets are going halfway across the world to try and lay the groundwork to bring him in here.
Yeah, right off the bat, I just feel like the Mets may have won in getting him to come to the Mets. I mean, no offense to what the Yankees are trying to do, but I mean, Steve Cohen, the billionaire that he is, flew his private jet all the way to Japan to meet with him. If I'm Yamamoto, I think I might be more leaning towards signing with the Mets, just alone because of the way that courtesy they did to fly over to where I live to speak to me like that. That's just something when you see, like, with the fact that they want you, that they're going that extra mile, going to where you live to try to get to you.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, man. I mean, it all comes down to putting the work in and putting the extra effort in. And yeah, it looks like the Mets are doing that right now. Everything leading up to today is suggested that the Mets are probably the front runners in him. In this sweepstakes right now for Yamamoto. One thing I found interesting, though, was that David Stearns, they were talking about the contingent, as we were saying, of Mets people that flew to Japan for this meeting. David Stearns mentioned that it was a long journey there, and it was a quick meeting, and then they jumped right back, and it was a long journey back. But he was asked specifically if Kodai Senga joined them on this, which would make sense. The Mets, Japanese free agent signing from last season. And he actually he declined to give an answer on that. And I thought that was very interesting. Dan, what do you think? Do you think that Senga was with them?
I really feel like it's a 50-50 chance he might have been with them. Though you do got to remember, maybe probably probably may have been to Singer's availability at that time because you got to remember these players do have families. So for all you know, Singer may have been trying to make the most of the off season, his family and stuff. But I'd say it's a 50-50 chance that did happen.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. So it's it's definitely a possibility. I found it interesting that he I keep wanting to say neglected, that he decided not to answer that question. So very interesting stuff on there. The Mets still have a lot going on right now in this free agency. They brought in infielder Joey Wendell. They made a couple of things today. They had the Rule 5 draft where they selected a pitcher who they then immediately traded to the Texas Rangers for a minor league pitcher who was pitching in college last year. I don't know, Dan. I got to tell you, I am not blown away by what we're seeing the Mets do this off season so far. I'm very disappointed so far, and I know it's early. It's only December 6th. Things can change. I know Yankee fans were probably very disappointed as of 48 hours ago too. But I'm very disappointed with what I'm seeing. I keep hearing the phrase reset, that they're trying to use this year as a reset after the signings of Scherzer and Verlander kind of went awry. But look, I'm not signing for a reset this year. I'm not giving that to these guys. They haven't earned it. They have to go out there. This is the most this is the most affluent owner in Major League Baseball right now. He's worth over $15 billion. Eat the money for the mistakes that you made the last couple of years and bring in more guys so we can get back to the playoffs. Because so far, the Mets have played 3 playoff games under Steve Cohen in 4 years, or whatever it is now, 3 years, and they've lost 2 of them. So, we had 1 good season and 2 garbage ones on the outside, with 2021 and 2023 both being disasters. So look, I'm sorry, there's not enough goodwill built up yet, and I think the Mets have to go out there and do something big, and that starts with bringing in Yamamoto, but it doesn't end there, because I want to see a big bat, and I don't care what you have to do to get that bat. But we saw how garbage the Mets lineup was, and last year, and they also seem fine with their third base, competition right now, which means Brett Beatty, and he actually included Joey Wendell when he talked about third base. So I'm really not happy, and my patience is very, very thin right now. And I'm sorry I just spewed that all out, but Dan, after everything that I just said, what do you think? What's your takeaway from how the Mets are looking so far in this offseason?
All right. Well, I would finally do some big move already. I'm sick of them staying put. I feel like nothing. Literally, it's just crickets every time I watch Sports Night. This does not feel like a market team, all right? Seeing crickets when it comes to talk about the Mets. Just seeing bench signings and maybe some possible bullpen signings. I just feel like they need to make a big move, all right? They owe it to the fans. I feel like Steve Cohen definitely is ready to make a big move. He wants to make a big move. It just got to do it. I just feel like the first impression, it really tells a lot, right? And so far, I haven't seen Dave do jack shit yet, which I'm waiting for him to do something already.
Yeah, I'm totally with you, man. It's very disappointing to see how they've handled things so far, and especially with Ohtani. Me and you and Met fans have been talking about going hard after Ohtani for years at this point, and it looks like the Mets are just the nervous kid on the outside that don't want to ask the cute girl to dance, on the dance floor right there. It's like, what are you doing? The Mets are sitting acting all bashful while everybody else is going out there finding a dance partner. Go out there and grab someone. What the hell is going on? The Mets are going to be left. You see the Braves, which, by the way, I don't know if you saw this trade, Dan, but you know as well as I do that this trade is going to come back and bite the Mets in the ass. Guess who? Did you see who the Braves acquired yesterday?
Yep, that guy we gave up for that. I guess I could say a watered down version of a Bobby Bonilla deal. I feel like because that's all that Robinson Cano trade was. The only saving
we did get Edwin Diaz,
but we just got a player that at that time when the Mets made that trade, I said I thought it was a bad trade at the beginning when we made that trade because I knew Robinson Cano was pretty much past his prime when we made that trade. So I was scratching my heads on that one. I remember the news of that trade came when I noticed that trade I noticed on my phone the news of that trade the moment the plane landed in Florida that week. That I think that was the weekend I was in Florida. One of my for a relative's wedding at that time in Florida. Like one of my relatives was getting married, and I was in Florida to attend the wedding. And as soon as the plane landed, right in the car, we're going to the Airbnb, right? This Airbnb in Tampa, right? With the rest of the New York relatives that made the trip to the wedding, right? And then I remember I think my uncle thought with me, and I was saying, "No, I'm sorry." I was saying to my uncle, one of my uncles who's a Yankee fan, I said, "I'm sorry, but I don't really think that this trade was a good trade." Robinson Cano is nowhere near the player that you remember during his Yankee days. So I was like scratching my heads on that trade at the time, not knowing that it eventually lead to us having probably one of the best closers in baseball. But glad that we're no longer paying we're officially Robinson Cano is off the payroll now because I gather his contract officially expired after last year because I remember we were still paying the rest of that contract.
Yeah, the 10-year deal finally expired. The Mets got hooked up the last 5. And yes, you're correct. Finally, that is done. That's over. So we don't got to worry about that anymore. Luckily, Steve Cohen mitigated that a little bit for us anyway. But yeah, just to reiterate, the prospect who the Mets traded, outfielder Jared Kalanick, is now in the Atlanta Braves organization. He comes over with right-handed pitcher Marco Gonzalez, who then the Braves ended up flipping for a prospect to the Pittsburgh Pirates. But mark my words, you know as well as I do, just like Travis d'Arnaud came back and bit our ass, just like anybody who the Braves get a hold of that's an ex-Met came back and bite our ass, that's exactly what Jared Kalanick is going to do, come back and bite the Mets' ass this year at some point, right?
Yeah, though I hear say he's kind of has a bit of an ego in the clubhouse, I hear.
Really? Where'd you hear that?
I don't know. I was hearing some reports from Seattle about the guy.
Really?
I mean, I kind of read the comments when I saw the post from MLB Network.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, because I was kind of searching what some people at Seattle think of him. So I kind of was just trying to get the pulse on this player.
Yeah, because I was very surprised to hear that trade, but things really haven't gone too well for him in Seattle. Although he started off this season really, really hot for the Mariners, and then just absolutely crashed and burned in the second half. So, who knows what player the Braves are getting? Hopefully, it's the bad one. But I think with that, let's keep it rolling along here, Dan. We still got a couple more things to get to before we call it a day. Real quick, we'll speed through some of the football, although things just absolutely have gotten ridiculous with the Jets, man. It just seems like this is, I really feel like Bill Murray in Groundhog Day. All I want to do is punch Ned in the face because that's exactly, good old Ned Ryerson, because I need someone to take my anger out on, because this is absolutely terrible what Jet fans have been forced to watch as the Jets go out there on Sunday against the Atlanta Falcons and lose that one 13-8. Just absolutely abominable quarterback play, offensive calling, just everything that you can imagine, just terrible. The Jets dropped to 4-8. Their season's essentially over. They have really, really wasted Aaron Rodgers, defying logic, coming back in record time. They've absolutely wasted all the hard work that guy put in. And now they're 13-8. But the thing that really drives me crazy is that, so 2 weeks ago, we talked about Tim Boyle being named Jets starting quarterback, which at the time I said, whatever, okay, as long as they're taking Zach Wilson out, that's a step in the right direction. But Tim Boyle stinks too, so it's not going to really make that big a difference. But, my preference was Trevor Siemian, and he looked like shit too. So it looks like the Jets got 3 garbage quarterbacks in their roster, probably the worst quarterback room in the NFL, maybe even NFL history, based off what we're seeing, because this Jets offense, if you're not aware, is the worst offense in the NFL since at least the year 2000, but it's also the worst offense in the NFL in a lot of metrics, going all the way back to 1972. So this is one of the worst offensive teams in the last 50 years of the NFL. Mind-boggling, right? So they take Zach Wilson out after. Oh, I'm sorry, Dan. I'll be done 1 sec. I'm just going on a rant here real quick, because after they took Zach Wilson out, by the way, Zach Wilson went 40 consecutive drives. Think about that. 40 consecutive drives without scoring a touchdown. They decide to bench Zach Wilson. They put in Tim Boyle. He stinks. They lose to the Dolphins. He starts the next week, against the Falcons. He stinks. Throws an interception. Gets pulled. They put Trevor Siemian in. He stinks. After the game now, Tim Boyle gets released. Tim Boyle was released. He started the last 2 games. How do you go from being worthy of starting to being released in 2 weeks? And Zach Wilson is now, today, named inexplicably, once again, the Jets starting quarterback. It's like that meme of The Simpsons where, Moe is throwing Barney out of the bar. You see Barney get thrown out, and before Moe even has a chance to turn around and go back into the bar, Barney's already sitting back there. The Jets can't get rid of this guy. He is like a cockroach. He will never go away. I can't believe we're seeing this again, Dan. This guy, once again, is Jets starting quarterback.
All I could say is good luck with that, because I think you're just gonna end up with another Sunday afternoon of trying to probably tie yourself to the chair to not destroy your TV, it feels like.
Yeah, you got that right. I mean, that'd be one way to control my temper.
And I feel like, once again, the Jet fan suicide prevention is going to be on call next week during a Patreon show, I feel like.
Oh yeah, get your tickets now. Only $5 if you want to see me lose my mind once again, thanks to a awful Jet loss. But you know what, Dan? The crazy thing to me is that, did you see all this controversy earlier this week? Right? There's a report from ESPN's Diana Rossini and The Athletic's Zach Rosenblatt, who, say what you want about the media. I am very angry at the media at times. I don't believe the media a lot at times. This story has been sourced. It's been checked. There is a player source, a coach source, and one other team source in there that all verified it. So there are a lot of Zach Wilson people who go out there and want to defend everything this kid does, that are saying that this report's a lie. This report is not a lie. It's been verified. So even, by the way, both Aaron Rodgers and head coach Robert Saleh tried doing damage control on this, and in doing so, neither one of them even intimated that this was not correct. They said that it might not have been expressed correctly, but they knew that this was a real thing. So the report states from both those people that Zach Wilson expressed to teammates and coaches reservations about returning as starting quarterback due to injury concerns. When I heard that, you cannot tell me that this guy is the best thing the Jets had to try and win it, to try and win. I cannot believe that this guy, who essentially, when you read it like that, he's quitting on the team. He's quitting on the team. It took Aaron Rodgers, by the way, all this was coming out yesterday. It took Aaron Rodgers, and this is another report that came out that Rodgers tried to refute a little bit, but it didn't really make much sense, and he didn't refute it hard. But Rodgers had to take Zach Wilson aside and tell him, hey, buddy, listen, you're doing yourself a disservice here. You got to go into the coach's office and tell him you want the fucking ball. You're not, quitting on the team, essentially, because when you read this, that he doesn't want to play quarterback in the NFL after, by the way, the Jets have paid him $35 guaranteed million as the number 2 overall pick in the draft. This guy wants to quit on the team because he's sad that the Jets benched him because he sucked and he went 40 straight drives without a touchdown. Dan, I'm losing my mind because of this team. This team is killing me. I understand, and we're going to get to Joe Beningo in a second because I want your opinion on that too. But I feel like Joe Beningo when I say I hate this team. When you hear this, Dan, what do you think about Zach Wilson?
I just am shocked that this guy, how did this guy even end up on the team in the first place? Because it's just a complete disaster after another. And then all of a sudden we got now hiding that they've had injury concerns. How do they even start this guy with that? It's raising eyebrows of that decision on management.
No. Dan, the thing is that Zach Wilson has no injury concern. He is 100% healthy, but apparently he's worried about playing and getting hurt.
Then in that case, like, Zach Wilson's like a freaking joke. I mean, shut up and just go and put in the effort.
Yeah, and guess what? When you play football, sometimes you get hurt. That's what happens. But if you know how to protect yourself, and, okay, sometimes, you can't help it, but he's played all year and he hasn't been hurt. What the hell? All of a sudden, now he started the last 9 games before he got benched. Now, all of a sudden, he's worried about getting hurt? What is he talking about? Mekhi Becton just came back. His line is healthier right now than it's been all season. So what is the injury concern? I don't understand it. It really drives me nuts. I cannot believe that actually happened, and it did. Whether people that like Zach Wilson want to debate it or not, it happened. And Dan, I have a theory too, because Robert Saleh came out today too, which, by the way, that guy, if it were me, Saleh would be fired right now. And Douglas, I want both of them gone for nothing less than the incompetence that they've showed. But Robert Saleh came out today and said he felt that he felt all along that Zach Wilson gave the team the best chance to win. Now, let me ask you, Dan, if that was true, then why didn't Zach Wilson start the last 2 games? Why did he start Tim Boyle? I don't get that at all. That shows pure incompetence. But the other thing is, now we're talking about Aaron Rodgers went on Pat McAfee's show yesterday, and he was calling out these leaks from inside the Jets training facility, which, by the way, I agree, because winning cultures, you don't have leaks like that. The stuff you don't have players and coaches talking to reporters, throwing your quarterback under the bus like this in a winning culture. But if Zach Wilson really did say this, I don't blame him. But interestingly enough, they mentioned Tim Boyle getting released. Aaron Rodgers didn't even, and Aaron Rodgers has known Tim Boyle since 2019. They've been teammates. They liked each other. Rodgers was the reason that Boyle was brought in here in the first place. But Tim Boyle got released today before the Jets claimed quarterback Brett Ripken, however you say his name, off waivers. So what I'm saying to you, Dan, is I think it's very interesting timing. And Rogers' reaction to the question, I think that they found out that Tim Boyle was the leak to Diana Rossini and Zach Rosenblatt, who said that about Zach Wilson. And I think that's the reason why he got released. What do you think about that?
It would not surprise me that this whole thing happens, because it just seems like the entire season the Jets have been a disaster. Pretty much the moment, even though the Jets won that game, it looked like they were going to be a disaster the moment Aaron Rodgers got injured.
Yeah, and it really has. This season. Look, I've seen a lot of bad Mets seasons. I've seen a lot of bad Rangers seasons, those early 2000s and late 90s. I've seen a lot of bad Knicks over the last 20, 25 years. This season for the Jets is the most disappointing sports season I've ever experienced in every single way possible. Not even getting to see Aaron Rodgers complete a pass. Just horrific. Now they're saying, obviously, with the loss, that Rodgers he's back in practice this week. He said he's really going to push himself in the rehab Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Now tomorrow, the day this debuts, is going to be Thursday. So I really think we're going to hear, a definitive answer in the coming days what the Jets are planning on doing with Rodgers. But even though they're saying never say never, I mean, there's no reason to bring him back right now if the team is out of it, Even if they win on Sunday against the Texans, which doesn't seem likely, but even if they win on Sunday, they're 5-8 and probably dead, although not mathematically eliminated, as Aaron Rodgers pointed out on Pat McAfee yesterday. So with all that said and done, Dan, if you'd take a guess right now, do we see Rodgers in a Jet uniform again this year, or are we waiting until 2024 for that?
I think pretty much the preseason 2024 is the next time you'll be seeing Aaron Rodgers in action.
Yeah, unfortunately, the Jets dropped the ball, and that could not have been the case. He could have been back at some point in the next week or two, but I do agree with you. I think the dream is dead, and the impossible dream has just become that impossible. I don't think A-Rod will be returning this year. I think you're right. It'll be training camp next year that we'll see him putting on that green jersey one more time. Now, the Jets' next game is going to be on this Sunday, the 10th, 1 p.m. against Houston, as we mentioned. We'll be live on Patreon following that. So patreon.com/bestseatinthehouse podcast, $5 to join up today. But the other team, the New York Giants, are coming back off their bye, 2 consecutive wins. They also brought Tyrod Taylor back. He's been designated to return to practice. His 3-week window is open right now, just like Rodgers is. So the Giants have until basically right around Christmas Eve to decide if they want to bring Tyrod Taylor back. Now, they already decided that Tommy DeVito is going to be their starter on Monday night because they're playing the Green Bay Packers on Monday Night Football this week. And Tommy DeVito will be starting that. So, you know what? Obviously, Tyrod is not ready to come back yet, but it's a good sign that he's back in practice. And it's going to be kind of cool to see Tommy DeVito under the lights on national television, right?
Yeah, it's kind of going to be cool to see that. Unfortunately, remember how we said in a Patreon show, I was looking forward to seeing the Manning cast feed and seeing what the Manning time. I totally forgot that they're doing 2 Monday night games. That you got the Giants, Packers supposedly is going to be on ABC. And I don't know if this is working the same way everywhere in the country, but at least I know here in New York, so from what I've looked up on the TV listings, the Giants Packers game is going to be on ABC. And the other, I forgot what the other Monday night game is, but I heard the other Monday night game is going to be the one that's going to be available in the Manningcast feed. So, unfortunately, I'm not going to get to really get. Fortunately, as much as I think ESPN is missing a golden opportunity on this one to really get to. I really want to hear like Eli and the Manning brothers really what their take on what they think of Tommy DeVito so far. But it's not meant to be, and I'm stuck with, I guess. I don't even know who the secondary Monday night broadcasters are going to be because it's very rare ESPN does 2 Monday night games. Like, obviously, I'm pretty sure the other game is going to be the one that Joe Buck and the other, I forgot whoever they do. Is it the Monday night? I forgot who the other guy is in the booth with Joe Buck is. Who's the other guy again?
Troy Aikman.
Troy Aikman. I'm thinking Buck and Aikman are going to be. They're probably going to be doing the other Monday night game, so I'm not quite sure who's going to be doing this game. What I do, I don't know if they have that information yet, but of course, if they do have to bring the B team to do the broadcast, this Monday night broadcast, part of me kind of hopes they go old school and we get to see Chris Berman in the broadcast booth again.
That'd be cool. I always liked Berman, man.
Yeah. I would just love to see like the ESPN, just a little bit of flicker of the ESPN I grew up with in the 90s.
Exactly. You're right. And also on top of that, now Dan, you got the other thing that was coming out of last night now is that we'll shift over to a little bit of Knicks talk. As man, did you catch any of that tournament game? The Knicks ended up losing 146 to 122. Damn, there was no defense played there at all last night. The Knicks unfortunately get eliminated, although it really doesn't mean anything. But what'd you think?
Well, for one thing, I was kind of more of doing a 2-screen kind of thing because I had the Rangers game on the TV and I had this game on my phone because I don't really think much of this in-season tournament. I just personally think it's a stupid idea that some TV network probably went to the NBA commissioner's office and pitched, and they went with it. And I just feel like the Knicks maybe didn't want to have to play an unnecessary game to pretty much a glorified exhibition game, and maybe save it for the regular season and the playoffs, I feel like.
Yeah, but you know what, though? Like, I know what you're saying, but it really doesn't affect their rest or anything at all, because now the fact that they won on Thursday, they'd be going to Las Vegas to play whoever the other team left is. I forget who it was. But now that they lost, now they have to go to Boston and play the Celtics on Thursday. So either way, they were going to have a game on Thursday. And to be honest, whoever it was in Vegas, I'd rather play that game than the Celtics again, because the Celtics have kicked the Knicks' ass twice this year, and I'm sick of seeing Kristaps Porzingis in green.
Yeah, exactly. I'm kind of sick of it. I just hope for once the Knicks win this. I mean, I will jump up and down in my living room if the Knicks win this game, I have to admit. Because I just feel I just feel like this would be a real emotional win, beating a tough opponent like the Celtics. As they're seeming like they're going to be one of the tough opponents this year in this NBA season. I feel like.
Yeah, it's true, man. The Celtics definitely are going to be up there, and seeing Milwaukee last night too with Damian Lillard into that team, man, it wouldn't surprise me if we see another Boston-Milwaukee Eastern Conference Finals, because both those teams look pretty damn good. A little bit of the hockey, but to be honest, right now, the Rangers ended up dropping the game last night 6-2 to Ottawa. The Islanders ended up blowing one last night and losing 5-4 in overtime. The Islanders definitely needing the wins a lot more than the Rangers, but starting to get a little annoyed. This is the Rangers' second 6-2 blowout loss in the last week. But I think once they start getting healthy again, because let's not forget the Rangers are kind of banged up right now. They just got Fox back, and that they're still waiting on Hedel and Kako to get back to. So I think the Rangers that they're playing a little shorthanded right now, but once they get healthy, I think everything's going to be good. And even till then, they're still a deep team, right?
Yeah, I just feel like the Rangers are going to be fine. I feel like that loss yesterday wasn't really anything to panic on. It was horrible. I do have to admit it was. It did make me want to. I did have to restrain myself from wanting to smash the TV for that. But as long as they don't fall into a deep hole and they bounce back and they go on another little winning streak, start winning Saturday. As long as they don't get in any long losing streaks, I feel like the Rangers are going to be fine. Looks like they're probably going to. I feel weird saying that, and a little advice to the Rangers: if you end up finishing the regular season with the best record, don't lay a finger on the President's Trophy. Because I'll tell you a little story about my Rangers fan history. 2015, remember that year? Rangers had the best record in the league. Remember what happened during that presentation, that trophy presentation? Remember Ryan McDonough? He touched the President's Trophy. Did you feel the same way I did? I was like, why did you do that, Ryan? There's only one trophy as a hockey player you're supposed to touch after you win it, and we know what trophy that is, the Stanley Cup. A little bit of advice to this year's Rangers. The only trophy you could dare touch after you win it is Lord Stanley.
Yep, well said, Dan. Well said, man. And hey, I mean that's the last thing we got to see the Rangers do now. We've seen them do everything else since they won the Cup in '94. Bring one back, and that's why, as good as the regular season is for the Rangers this year, they're only going to be judged on what they do in the playoffs. So, and I think right now we got the right coach to lead them there. So,
yep, exactly. And for those of you who aren't familiar with this little superstition in hockey, basically what it is that there's a superstition in hockey that during the regular season, the only trophy you touch after you win it is the Stanley Cup. It's the long time hockey superstition.
Exactly, because it's pretty much saying that, look, there's only one trophy that matters: the Eastern Conference, the Western Conference, the MVPs, the President's Trophy. None of those trophies mean anything compared to, as you said, Lord Stanley's Cup. So yep, I think that's a great, yeah.
As a matter of fact, a little story about the Stanley Cup and myself. When I was like 12 years old, remember when they had the All-Star game in New York? I don't know. You're younger than me, but I don't know if you remember this. Remember they had this exhibit in
That was in '94.
Yeah, remember they had this exhibit in Grand Central Station where they brought stuff from the Hockey Hall of Fame on display, and they had the Stanley Cup on display. When I took a picture with it, I was instructed by my mother at the camera, because this is, of course, we all know how the '94 season ended. They won the Cup, but just before they won the Cup, I was instructed, because the Rangers hadn't won the Cup in my lifetime yet, not to touch the Stanley Cup. And I stuck by that when I took that picture with the Cup. And of course, fast forward a couple of years later, because the Rangers had won the Cup in my lifetime, then by the time 2018 happened, they had won the Cup in my lifetime. I had said I was like 12 when they won in '94. When I took a picture with the Stanley Cup, when they had it on display in Madison Square Park, which is a park in New York City, they had a little exhibit. They had like a little exhibit that had some memorabilia from the Hockey Hall of Fame, because it was the 100th anniversary of the NHL, and plus it was a lead up to the Winter Classic, which was happening at Citi Field that year. Only then, that encounter with the Stanley Cup, because they had won it in my lifetime, did I feel like I was worthy of touching the Stanley Cup. And I even told my sister, until the Rangers win a cup, because you were born, I said, Shannon, because you're born 1 year short of the Rangers winning the Cup in your lifetime, until they win the Cup in your lifetime, if you take a photo with the Cup, don't touch the Cup, because they hadn't won it yet in your lifetime.
Well, great advice, Dan. That's 100% right. And hey, it's all about respect. So you're definitely right. I think that's a great place to leave it this week. that's just about going to do it for us this week, Dan. But before we get out of here, do you have anything that you'd like to plug for yourself?
Sure, I got my Twitter account, or X as they call it. I don't know. I'm just so set in my ways of calling it Twitter. They still call it Twitter. It's like the Met fans that still call Citi Field, they call it Shea Stadium. So it's kind of like that with being Twitter. I'm still calling it Twitter, but it's a Bobo103NYC. And of course, you can follow me on Instagram, Bobo718DK. That's the same handle I use on Threads also. Also on YouTube, it's one word, Daniel Curlin. It's one word. It's Daniel Curlin on YouTube. That's all. It's all the places you can find all your Bobo content.
That's right. So make sure to check Dan out there, and you catch me on social media, obviously on Twitter, just like Dan said, or X, whatever you want to call it, at my last name Kramer NY. Don't forget to check out the show at BSID_podcast. And finally, on Instagram, you can check us out at Best Seat in the House Podcast. Also, don't forget, if you're on Rumble or YouTube, check us out there. Give us a like and subscribe. We always appreciate the support from our great fan base. So that's going to do it for us this week. And for my co-host, Daniel Bobo Curlin, I'm Rob Kramer, and we'll catch you on Sunday on the Patreon show, and then again on Monday for the Giants game, Monday Night Football. So if you're a subscriber, you're going to be getting a lot of extra content. And this is the Best Seat in the House podcast. We'll catch you next week, everybody.